Good evening, everyone. Today is Wednesday, May 28th, 2025. We do have a quorum present, so I would like to call to order this regularly scheduled meeting of the Board of Commissioners of the Chittenden Solid Waste District. Had a request, before we begin the meeting in earnest, had a request from folks on Zoom. They sometimes have a hard time seeing our faces here in the meeting room and knowing who's who, so I'm going to try to incorporate that as a regular practice. Just ask the folks in the meeting room to go around and just identify yourself by name, and I think most of us are known, but if not,
You can call me out, it's fine.
Okay. We're gonna stop. But anyway, go ahead, Amy.
Jewel, Director of Administration for CSWD.
Jen Holliday, Director of Public Policy and Communications for CSWD.
Michael Moser, I'm from the Center for Rural Studies at the University of Vermont, and we've done some research with you all, looking at aspects of community knowledge and attributes related to their solid waste disposal.
And we'll be hearing from Michael a little bit further into the meeting today.
Allison Lazars, I'm the South Burlington alternate.
Paul Stabler, the South Burlington primary.
Paul Roos, rep from Underhill and chairing the meeting.
Sarah Reeves, Executive Director.
Alan Nye, the Essex rep.
Hi, I'm Thomas Maloney from Paul Frank Collins, legal counsel for the district.
Very good, and I'll try to remember if other important folks come in later on that before they speak, ask them to identify themselves. First item on the agenda is the agenda itself. I do want to point out that there was an email that went out yesterday noting that there was one addition to the consent agenda, item 3.6, reimbursement resolution. I trust that all the commissioners have received that and read the memo that accompanied it, but I did want to point that out, that that is a change or an addition to the agenda. Are there consent agenda? Thank you. Are there any any requests for changes or additions to the agenda? Hearing none, then we'll follow the agenda as presented in the board packet, and as I noted, the consent agenda has that extra item on there. Public comment period is next item on the agenda. Are there any members of the public who wish to address the Board of Commissioners? I'd note that there are no members of the general public here in the meeting room. So are there any present via Zoom or via phone who wish to address the Board of Commissioners?
Yes, this is Henry. I'd like to mention a couple things.
Under other business.
We can do that under other business, Henry. This is really for the public comment period. I think we lost.
No,
So we'll, I'll make note of that when we get to other business, Henry.
We do only have board members and staff on, so
There are no members of the public present. I'll close the public comment period. And now we'll move on to the consent agenda, consisting of the minutes of the April 16th, 2025 board meeting, program update memo, executive director update memo, the standard finance report, a proposal to purchase a loader for the organics recycling facility. It's been detailed in the packet. And then, as I noted, the reimbursement resolution dealing with bonds proceeds usage. Are there any requests to remove an item from the consent agenda for further discussion?
I did just want to point out that we had some minor changes to the minutes that board members sent separately, and we'll make those changes and repost.
Okay, and those were of a minor nature, typos, and one, I know, correction of the name of
The Burlington alternate.
yes,
Correct.
in the motion, a motion at the last meeting. Hearing no requests to remove an item from the consent agenda consisting of those 6 items will be accepted as presented. We are ready now for item 4, which is the 2024 CSWD Household Survey presentation. I'm guessing that we'll turn that over to Jen, or did you have introductory comments?
No introductory comments, but I do want to note that I will be ducking out of the meeting during Michael's presentation. This note should not be interpreted as anything other than I have a budget presentation to make to Essex Junction, City of Essex Junction at 6:30. So I will be heading out, but do not read anything into it other than I have another engagement.
All right.
All right. Pass this along.
Thank you.
So I'll introduce Michael again, Michael Moser from the Center for Rural Studies at University of Massachusetts.
Vermont.
I went to University of Massachusetts, it just rolls off my tongue, sorry about that. So Michael and his team did our household survey last December. We worked on questions for quite a period of time during the year. And then they did the survey, got some really strong participation. I believe the most we've surveyed based on what I've looked at in history of CSWD surveys. Just to give you any board members and the public information about the surveys, we generally have done those every 2 years and we have been doing them since the 90s. So we have some great data. We hadn't done one since 2021 when Nancy left, so there was a little bit of a gap. We were all really excited to do the survey, get some information updated, and Michael's and his team did a great job, and he's here to just provide the highlights of the survey and answer questions.
Yeah, great, thank you very much, I appreciate that. And I guess I could emphasize highlights, and there is a full report, and so if you wanna dig deeper, there's certainly more you can do. All right, so the purpose of this work is to understand your community's knowledge and actions and viewpoints related to waste diversion and what motivates folks to make less waste. You also are interested in knowing a bit more about your customers, who they are, how they use the services, and how you all can improve your services over time. So the methods for the research, as Jen mentioned, we reviewed and incorporated questions and themes from multiple past surveys and introduced new lines of questioning as well into this work. So we basically started with a wide funnel and kind of dropped a bunch of lines of inquiry into it, and then sort of spent a bit of time working through all of that and sort of picking the right pieces that needed to be explored and then moving forward with that. So that did take some time and some work. We refined an accessible and low burden survey instrument, so that just means that we made it easy for people to answer the questions and respond to. And there's a mix of quantitative sort of, what's the Likert scale that you agree with this statement, or on a 0 to 10 scale, whatever the quantitative data are. And then the qualitative, like, tell us more about why you do or don't do something, right? And we did thematic analysis on the qualitative data, and we did, just straight quantitative analysis. You'll see some of that represented in a moment. Again, the survey was online in December 2024. We utilized Chittenden County resident email addresses for outreach. We had a very nice response of about 1,800 respondents, which was wonderful. You've got a very low margin of error for the responses that you see here. Let's see, I can do that, can't I? What do I have to do? I have to minimize it again? Yeah, there we go, that'll work. Demographics, just a broad overview. 90% of folks that responded had lived in Chittenden County for 5 years or more. We've got good distributions across age, income, and gender categories. About 86% homeowners and 14% renters. According to the Census Bureau, that's about 66% homeowners in Chittenden County. So we're a little bit high on the homeowner ratio, but that is what it is. 23% of respondents have trash costs included in their rent or condo fees. And about 85% of respondents had a college degree or equivalent, which is higher than the Chittenden County rate as well. So you've got more homeowners and more highly educated or more respondents that have a higher educational attainment than for the county overall. And we call that response bias, if anyone's interested. So people that are more highly educated are more likely to respond to surveys and want to give you their opinion and thoughts on things. Demographically, this is the results of, who responded from different communities within Chittenden County. I believe, I'm gonna skip this because I believe we put this in after the initial presentation, which really shows how the survey respondents match to the population overall. We have greater representation from Burlington. Yes.
Essex Junction includes both the town and the city.
Yes, in this research, yes. Yep, we could pull them apart. But there's a bunch of combinations, like Williston and St. George are combined. I don't think we had anyone from Bealscore respond. There's 11 people in Bealscore, but there is some pushing together of some smaller communities, yes.
Okay.
Not that Essex Junction City is not a smaller, it is a smaller community by any means.
Just, I went looking for Essex and couldn't find it. I saw St. George on there, but I just think if you do something in the future, you need to make sure that might have the dash in Essex there also or something.
So
Yeah.
we do have all the data separate, cause we did it by zip code.
Yeah.
So we definitely can tease out Essex
But
Junction.
there's a lot of, we all have the same zip code.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
I didn't.
So I think,
I'm sorry, just to interrupt, just to notify folks on Zoom, right now, our screen here, we're only seeing the presentation. If you have your hand up, I can't see you, so I'm unable to recognize you. And I think what we'll do is allow Michael to go through the presentation.
Thank you.
And keep notes of your questions. Hopefully that'll keep the flow going, but
if something's burning in your mind, you can interrupt me and shout out if you need to, if you're
I think that's fair, but it's
Yeah.
really a critical question.
Yeah.
Bears on our understanding of what you're presenting.
Yep.
By all means, yeah, but our observations and questions, let's hold off till a little bit later in the presentation.
So, so overrepresentation from Burlington, otherwise, not really any challenges. There's nothing that's like really egregious here at all. 10 percentage points overrepresentation in the city. Overall key findings, 97% of respondents feel it's somewhat or very important to reduce their waste. Isn't that a beautiful thing? 91% say this is it for environmental reasons, and this is a interesting sort of communication piece to be thinking about, what motivates folks, right? There's a little bit of mashing on the table on the left there, but or the graphic on the left, but we see the top 10 reasons it is difficult to reduce trash, packaging being by far the largest challenge. And plastic, I would combine that with packaging. I think a lot of people were talking about film plastics when they were, but we do have more data around film plastics versus other packaging materials, et cetera. And then the percent who throw particular items in the trash, food scraps being, one of the greatest items that gets thrown in the trash. And again, some more information about that further on in our reporting here. Overall awareness of CSWD facilities, and just keeping in mind that this is driven a little bit by where people are responding from. So you're gonna have more people from Burlington because there's more people in Burlington. More people responding from Burlington means that there's gonna be a higher awareness of some of these Burlington-centric spaces versus a place like the drop-off center in Heinsberg. But it is nice to see that you've got your organics recycling facility with a high level of awareness as comparable to the drop-off center in Williston or your drop-off center in South Burlington or in Burlington. These are the places where, or the environmental depot as well. These are the places where the majority of the population are living, and so that's high awareness, but also that organics recycling facility has very good awareness, and it's, as far as I'm concerned, it's kind of tucked away. How do respondents dispose of their household trash most of the time? So got 70% using a hauler, 30%, almost nearly 30% using a drop-off center. And then specifically the Casella drop-off center in Richmond are receiving 2%, but really the big numbers, the haulers and the drop-off centers. And then we did ask folks how much they pay for their trash, recycling, and food scraps. This is not a precise science because there's a lot of different ways that payment structure may take place. But you see that when it's included in rent or condo fees, that's about a quarter of the population saying that. And then you've got about another quarter saying that they spend less than $20 a month. And you have a quarter that say they spend more than $50 a month. I really don't know how that compares to what you think or the population overall, but it's good information. I learned a lot in our last presentation that there are lots of people that spend more than $50 a month on their trash and recycling, especially when you start adding in the food scraps and regular, weekly service, it adds up quickly. I go to the dump. Actually, I'm gonna go off on a tangent just for a minute because it's late. I grew up going to the dump and pitching bags off the back of my folks' pickup truck into the pit in Underhill, as a matter of fact.
Truly.
Yep. And now they're all transfer stations.
We call them drop-off centers.
Yeah, I know. Now it's different.
Absolute rats is the real question.
So 85% of respondents have used one of your drop-off centers. I think that's really great across the entire region. 95% of those folks feel that drop-off centers are either very easy or somewhat easy to use. It's really good stuff. I don't know how you're gonna turn the needle on that or push the needle on that. The top reasons that drop-off centers were listed as not easy to use included things like limited hours, it's too far away, no car or transportation, and maybe lines or crowding. And I think that no car or not the correct type of transportation, like people don't like to put trash in their car kind of situation, is something that we'll see throughout some of the data. So this is overall awareness of the materials that are accepted at the drop-off centers. I would ask maybe anyone here in this room or Jen or Sarah, if you have any feedback on something that stands out as you learned something here maybe. Like, is there an item on here that you thought folks would not know about or that they know more about it than you thought? No pressure.
I was somewhat surprised at the low amounts of the, down at the bottom of the scale, but with the majority of the 23% or 27% of the population using drop-off centers, right? I
Yeah.
think that was the number. They're the regular users. They're the ones that are gonna know about all the materials we accept. If people just go for, once in a while to get rid of a bulky item, they probably aren't gonna see that. So it's not a big surprise, but it definitely helps us look at what we want the public to know, what to work at. For example, batteries is not particularly high, somewhere in the middle there, and they're most problematic for us.
We get a lot of questions regarding clothing and textiles,
Yep.
and to see that way down on the list, I think that's an item that we'll wanna kind of look at and ramp up the information education on that, because it's just something where we get the question all the time, and they're just not aware that we do accept. And I think part of that too is because we did accept them, and then our vendor went away, so we didn't, and now they're back again.
New vendor.
It's a new vendor, so now it's reminding people or letting people know, renewed, that yes, we do indeed take clothing and textiles, so. More.
That's a really good point, Sarah, because the other thing is that we're coupling this information with the waste characterization study that the state did, and the results. And the top 3 items in the waste characterization study are food, then blue bin recyclables, And then textiles is the third highest material that can be diverted that's going to the landfill today. So those are kind of our three priorities to communicate, educate, work on as a organization, so.
Yeah, I mean, even food scraps here, you've got 40% of the population that say they didn't really know that, so. All right. So then we did some lines of inquiry on specific areas that CSWD operates in, hazardous waste being one of them. And again, just top level review of some of the findings. 74% of respondents know about the environmental depot. And of those, 73% found it was either easy or somewhat easy to use. 9% said it was not at all easy to use, and they stated that the appointment system was a challenge for them. 18% of respondents overall had never used the environmental depot. And likewise, 55% of respondents know about the rover. 38% found the rover easy or somewhat easy to use, with 6% saying it's not easy to use. And they're just naming that infrequent schedule as the top reason for being a challenge. And 57% of respondents have never used the rover. Within organics, 80% of respondents know about the organics recycling facility. 44% said it was easy to use. 4% said it was not easy to use. And again, that the top challenge being distance, location, getting your car out there, driving out there for, drop off of food waste. It's stinky. Who wants to put it in their car and drive around with it? And 53% of folks had never used the organics recycling facility. When asked how folks manage their food scraps, 34% compost at home, 23% use the haulers, 16% use a drop-off center, 5% are going right to the facility, 5% use a garbage disposal, and that number again, around 11% put food scraps right in the trash. Other materials, some of the key findings: 59% of respondents redeem their deposit containers. 13% of those who do not redeem them donate them. 32% of respondents drop off plastic film at retail collection sites. 18% are aware of retail collection for film but don't use it. 49% say they're not aware of the opportunity at all. 63% of respondents shred their paper. I know this is something that's been of interest to you all. 19% of those that shred put it loose in their blue bin. 22% put it in a clear bag in the blue bin. 13% put it in a clear bag and bring it to a drop-off center. And I know there are some challenges with, I guess, your equipment, right? And how it manages that shredded paper and so at least now you have data to understand and you can move the needle on some of these things, I think. Getting into some of the marketing key findings, how folks want to receive their information. This is preference to receive information. 43% prefer an email, 34% website, internet, 31% front porch forum. So what you see here with sort of those top 5, 6, 7 options, or even, the top 4 or 5 options, is that they're pretty well distributed, right? So there's not like a golden ticket for reaching your customers. You have to sort of communicate to them in the places that they're at that they prefer. And multi-modes is really the way to go. You'll never get everyone in one spot. And then a review of some of the open-ended comments. This was just, we said, is there anything else you'd like to say? There was no sort of directing response or anything like that. But, if you'd like to provide a comment, please do so. It was at the end of the survey, so they'd had time to think about things. And over 100% of those comments were positive feedback, general support for CSWD, the staff, the facilities. And I don't, Jen, you did some of this work, I think it was you. Do you wanna comment on any of those findings that you found in there, or?
I'll just comment that these were some of the more common that had more than a few, but it wasn't like, for example, the complaints about the depot appointment system, that wasn't a huge amount, it was like 5 to 10 of the total comments. Yeah, so it, it just gives us a little bit of a glean, like skepticism that recycling works. This is something that we've been concerned about as an organization, as you read newspaper articles about, or news articles about recycling being a sham. And so, that kind of gets our attention, and still it's not like, it's not like 40 or 50 people, it's less than 10, but it's there. So it's something that we consider and take, under consideration, but not, it wasn't an overwhelming amount of anything, except that CSWD is wonderful. The people that work at CSWD, which I assume a lot of the time is the drop-off center and the environmental depot and outreach folks that deal with the public, they all have really positive things to say. That was really great to see, and there were a few negative things about CSWD, but it was like three comments out of 290, so that was really nice.
Thank you. So that's the brief overview, top level. There's much more meat in the report. I'm going to the chat now, and I see, okay, Mike's leaving too. Okay, here's some more comments, there we go. The comments were so interesting, thank you for including them. All right, so if anyone has questions or comments,
Can we escape out of this full screen just so we can see what the rest of the,
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so the full report is in the packet. You can read every single comment there. Dive deeper into, this was just a real general highlights overview of the survey.
might want to pull this back up. I don't know if, seeing how the conversation goes, people might have specific questions on particular slides in the presentation, so just be ready. But any initial questions or comments from commissioners? Allison, please go ahead.
Yeah, in terms of the overall population that got the survey, we saw there was a high percentage of people from Burlington. Do you know if that was because more people in Burlington got the survey, or like how is it distributed amongst the various towns?
That's a great question. I don't know. We didn't do like a very specific sample distribution, so we didn't. It should occur naturally, proportionally, but it could be the case that there were more Burlington folks that we reached initially. That 10% isn't terrible. If it was, inching up towards 20% difference, I'd be concerned. It may be that more folks in Burlington are more connected to, the curbside and, recycling bins on the street and trash bins. I don't know. I don't have a good answer for that.
It might be helpful for you to explain how people received the survey, like how this was taken.
Oh, yeah, so we had, it was through email, and we had email addresses for folks who are supposed to be residing somewhere in Chittenden County. And, people move in and out all the time, but we had, I forget what the sample was, definitely tens of thousands of email addresses. And people had to say that they lived in one of the towns. That was our that's what the cutoff was. Could they have lied? Yes. Why would they have lied? Don't know. Maybe they really care. Or maybe they used to live in Chittenden County and they just left 6 months ago and they really do care.
So I have a couple of questions. One is, this is all general, very good news. It's great to get positive feedback, and I think we're being told we're doing a good job. Do we have any comparables to how other solid waste districts in the state are doing? So we could compare ourselves to others in our industry within this market, to see if, see how we compare.
So this was a requirement for the solid waste implementation plan for all solid waste entities in the state. The state is no longer requiring that, and the state does their own survey. They did that with the waste composition study this year. We looked somewhat at that to see what we probably didn't want to ask, because we already had that data. The short answer is no, and even if other solid waste districts did do surveys, they would be different questions, like, because we generated these questions based on what we wanted to know. We wanted to know a little bit of what motivates people to recycle and divert food scraps. What materials do we need to work on, both in knowledge, like the film recycling, that came up because again, the waste composition study shows a fair amount of film goes to the landfill. And so we thought, wonder if people even know about that option to bring film to the grocery store. And about half the population doesn't know about that. So that's something that we want to help educate about. So sorry, I went off on a tangent.
No, this is great, because kind of, I was gonna have another observation about the marketing key findings and the contact preferences, which all seem to me to be fairly direct. Email, going to the website is one-to-one, people know to go to the website. Front Porch Forum, which is kind of one-to-one, you get that daily email and you can see things in there. It kind of jumped out at me at Facebook, which I consider to be the representative of social media, 5% not ranking up high, and I would think that for Beth and crew that this might be some interesting information, but where to put efforts and perhaps social media. I know that in the reports that we get, we talk about the number of likes that we get, and well, they're not really all that many, and so I just put that question out there to think about it, where to put our marketing resources and our outreach and resources.
I think when you talk about information and you're asked somebody that question, I know that I like to take deeper dives than social media myself. But at the same time, I think social media has a huge purpose and an awareness level. Not maybe so as much information unless it's click on this to go further into it. And when Beth came on, that was a real goal of ours, is to pursue social media, have a heavier presence, and we do, and it's growing. And I think despite people's, how they want to receive, I think people do receive a lot of their information that way.
I'd kind of back off on my critique, saying it's just broad background exposure, and the more you see, it's like traditional advertising. When you constantly see the same Ford ad over and over again, it does have an influence that says, oh, Ford might have the truck for me.
I think the other thing is, I got a couple of friends that are in they're players in 2 other waste districts. And when we get down and talk about things, I mean, they're doing 15% of what we're doing up here. And so, I mean, their answers wouldn't even be related kind of with respect to that, I don't believe.
There is it might have been 10 years ago, we did research for the Solid Waste District Managers Association. And that was, and maybe that's the statewide work that you're talking about. We did do a statewide survey with them at one time, and that's your standardization across all the districts, and you can pull out the individual districts and compare and contrast amongst them.
That was nice. It was kind of a one-time thing. The state required it, and then everybody complained about how costly it was gonna be. and why can't we do this all together? And they
Yep.
said, yeah, sure, you can do it all together, and yeah,
Yep.
so, and now the state does it.
I don't want to keep asking the questions, another opportunity for commissioners. I have one more question to ask, which, have you compared this to the last study in 2021 to see if there's trends that have developed or
A
things that
little-
jump out at you?
A little bit, I still need to look at that more closely. There was, in terms of, I was particularly interested in how people want to receive their information when I was looking at comparing, and newspapers was really high the last time, and it's really low this time. And so I'm like, okay, I don't quite believe the 5%, I think it's probably a little bit higher than that this time, but so that was one thing. I think in general, overall support of the district, general trends of like the percentage of drop-off center users versus haulers is about the same, or still around that same. There's some new information, like what materials people are aware of that we do manage at drop-off centers. That was kind of baseline information that I thought was really helpful for us to think about what we wanna educate, communicate on. So yeah, it takes a little bit of time to really compare and contrast, and I felt like we were approaching this one somewhat different than we had approached the other ones in the past, and Sarah, myself, John Dorr and Beth were all part of the team to put together the questions. And it was like, what are we really trying to get at without looking at past surveys? What do we as a district need to know today? So there was a lot of different questions in this one.
And so do you think you got
We got,
information that you were hoping to get?
This is the beginning. We budgeted for next year 2 or 3 more surveys. So this is the beginning of, okay, let's sink into like what more questions we have based on these results. We got a fair amount of information, but I think that there's definitely more that we would like to get from folks.
Marty, your hand's up.
Yeah, I think a lot of this is seems consistent to me with my totally unscientific observations in my neighborhood. A couple of things. I think already I see a huge effort to focus on food scraps and getting food scraps out of the landfill, which is great. The plastic film is an interesting problem, and I'm wondering whether we can do more to get that done. I think one of the aspects that kind of blocks people from recycling is, as it was shown in the survey, skepticism about, does it really make a difference? Is it really getting recycled? And I think we were asked to post something on Front Porch Forum, I guess several months ago, that I thought was really, really helpful about who our recycling partners are, who sells the stuff that we recycle. I'm wondering whether we have any information on plastic film recycling from, local businesses, whether there's any way to find out whether that actually happens.
Yeah, there's definitely markets for it, and there's just a few recyclers that accept it for those markets. But so we don't have specific information on specific stores. We do know about the programs that are out there that support the stores in backhauling the film, but we don't have the specifics by store. Yeah, that might be something that we do in the future, Margie, to add to that document, and about what goes where, when we collect it, where does it go? We don't collect film, so it's not on that document, but just so you know, that has been a big hit with the outreach folks too. They've been using that document as a tabling piece for people to pick up and look at or take with them. And we're gonna be working with our marketing agency to kind of make that more of a something that's more digestible. It's just a spreadsheet right now. So the public does seem very interested in that information.
Great, thanks.
Ken, you've got the floor.
Yeah, hi. About the plastic films, I mean, all I know is that, and I'm assuming that all these grocery stores are sending it to Trex in one way or another. I think that's the system. There's a huge interest in Charlotte. I collect about 70 pounds of films a week with no effort at all. Just by making it available to people, and people seem to really, really like it. So, but again, this isn't, I have to take it to the loading dock in the back because I have big construction bags. But maybe there's some questions. I know there was interest in that data, but maybe a question like, if we collected plastic films, would you bring them to CSWD? Would help you decide whether it was worth getting into the business, obviously Trex I assume is paying something to the supermarkets who must be bundling the plastics and selling them. So, I mean, maybe we could be in that business and it could just continue to be revenue. And rather than shoving little plastics into the grocery store, I don't know whether that's easy for people or not.
Thank you. Yeah, we did look at, we are looking at taking film at our drop-off centers. We had potentially planned it for this coming budget, but that was one of the things that we decided we needed to cut, along with styrofoam. But it's definitely on the list of things to investigate more about, and it would be a net cost to us because of it's fairly labor intensive. You have to bale it, but it is something that we think is pretty divertible, and we would like to make it easier for consumers to drop off. But I think you're spot on, Ken. That's what I'm talking about with additional surveys. We need to dig into that a little bit more and find out whether people would use our facilities to do that.
Thanks, Jen.
Josh, you have a comment?
Yeah, I don't want to belabor the point on film. I just wanted to add some context that part of our issue was that in order to be a vendor of this material, you have to collect in generally tractor trailer or half load amounts, and currently we just don't have the space to do that. And in addition to that, you have to bale the material yourself. So we've looked at that as an option for film, cardboard, and styrofoam, as Jen mentioned. And so it's definitely on our radar to evaluate how we can take that material and how we can bale that material and market it ourselves. But with the capital needs that would go into a facility like that, we obviously put it on hold for this year. But definitely something we're continuing to evaluate as a potential option for the future.
Thank you for that observation, Josh. Any other questions for Michael or Jen, or general observations? Well, I thank you for taking the time to come and present it. It's really illuminating. I think it's important feedback for us as commissioners, to understand how well we are serving our communities and how well received we are. Try to find insights into the ways we can improve ourselves as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah, excellent presentation.
Excellent.
And
Thank you all.
Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
We are now ready to move on to item 5, executive session to discuss a personnel contract. Does the secretary have language to read into the record to enter into executive session?
I do. Motion that the board of the Chittenden Solid Waste District go into executive session to discuss personnel issues where premature general public knowledge would clearly place the district, its member municipalities, and other public bodies or persons involved at a substantial disadvantage, and to permit authorized staff and legal counsel to be present for this session.
So move, South Burlington.
Seconded Essex.
Thank you. It's been moved and seconded that we enter it into executive session for the purpose of discussing
Recording stopped.
personnel contract. I think we need it on to just have our vote.
Becky, can you record?
Recording in progress.
Thank you. All those in favor of the motion to enter into executive session, please say aye.
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 Any opposed, say nay. Any abstentions? We will now enter into executive session. We're now back in public session. Next item on the agenda is item number 6, Executive Director Contract. We have a motion to approve a contract between the Board of Commissioners of the Chittenden Solid Waste District and Sarah Reeves for an employment contract for a period commencing July 1st, 2025 through June 30th, 2030.
So moved, South Burlington.
Seconded Essex.
Thank you. Moved and seconded that the board and the district enter into an employment agreement with the executive director, Sarah Reeves, for a period of 5 years, beginning July 1st, 2025, and concluding on June 30th, 2030. Is there any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, I think we're ready for the question then. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Abstentions? Thank you very much. Contract's approved, and we are really super pleased to have you with us for another 5 years.
Thank you very much. I appreciate the support, and I will say that it is truly an honor and a privilege to work for CSWD. It's the highlight of my professional career, and I greatly enjoy the work that I do, the people that I work with, and working with you as a board. It's been really wonderful. So thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Sarah.
Thanks again.
We are now ready to move on to item number 7, a review of the June annual organizational meetings. I'll turn that over to Sarah.
Yes, so every June, the fourth Wednesday of every June, per our charter, we hold an annual organizational meeting. And this is where the board elects their chair, vice chair, treasurer, and secretary, and the executive board. And so in the packet, you have a memo that describes the guidance from the charter and talks about the nomination and election process. And we had to move to describing this process because we now do meet in a hybrid situation. We outlined this, it started with COVID, to be able to try to facilitate and ease the process. And so essentially the key piece is I need to receive nominations for the different positions ahead of the packet going out for the meeting on the 25th. So that's kind of your key date, is to send to me nominations via email is totally fine. Through the close of business on Friday, June 13th, our close of business is 4:30. You may nominate yourself, you may nominate someone else. If you nominate someone else, we will confirm that that person does indeed accept the nomination. So that's the key part, and then that slate of nominees will be included in the packet for the annual organizational meeting, so you will know ahead of time who has been nominated. Nominations are accepted on the day of the meeting as well. So just because you may need some time to think about it, you do have time, and you can nominate, again, you can nominate yourself at the meeting or ask someone else to nominate you. The memo also describes the duties of the officers. The chair is automatically a member of the executive board, so for the executive board, we do then select, or you do select 4 members, additional members from the board. And so, Tom, just to confirm, the members of the executive board are the primary commissioners, not alternate commissioners, is that correct?
That is correct. My advice in the past has been that all members of the executive board need to be the full regular commissioner and not an alternate.
Okay.
Nothing has caused me to change that opinion.
Okay. So this difference is differs from votes by the board in general, to where, so if Paul is unable to attend, but Allison's here, she can vote for South Burlington. However, if Paul is not in attendance on the executive board, then we are hoping we have a quorum, because Allison cannot step in as the executive board member. So that is the main difference for that. So, are there questions about the memo, about the process?
Just a reminder of the officer elect that will elect at that meeting.
Yep, so the chair, so Paul Owens is currently the chair, so that office is open. Alan is currently the vice chair. Secretary is currently Amy Jewell. So the secretary and treasurer can be a member of the public because they do not have to be a member of the board. And Paul Stabler is our current treasurer. The treasurer is also automatically the chair of the finance committee. Congratulations. So if for some reason we do have, and we have in the past, had contested races, then we would do a ballot. So we prepare, Amy and I prepare for that potential, and then we will send you a Zoom meeting, and then we would invite you one by one into that meeting. Amy and a teller would receive your vote, and then you would be excused, and then the next person would come in to that room, and we would do it that way. So that is how we've managed. We've only had contested elections, I think, once in the past 4 years under this new hybrid scenario, but we are prepared. So that is to say, please do throw your hat in the ring. Feel free to talk to any of the officers about the duties. You can also talk to me or to Amy as well if you have any questions. Would you like to?
Just to point out, and it's in the memo, that the finance committee, the chair appoints the members to the finance committee, rather than that being an elected or elected positions.
Correct. So we have traditionally had 3 members for the past many years serve as the finance committee. They also serve as the investment committee. It's the same folks. So there'd be 2 additional members. So if you are interested in serving on the finance committee, let Paul Roos know. And then that committee.
Or the new chair know.
That's true, that's true. Well, you can let, yeah, that's true, the new chair, correct. And then Paul in the past has been seating that committee at the July meeting.
So I think it's a fairly straightforward process. It's outlined in the packet. Just encourage folks really to step forward.
Are there any position, so this month, I think, is when the second half of the alphabet towns.
Yes.
So do we have any that still haven't decided or found someone?
We do, just Williston, I think, is the only one that is still without someone. So they've actually asked us to help get the word out, so we will do so. And Kaylin is still the alternate.
She is, but wasn't interested in that
in the full position.
Well, I hope we can, because they're, of course, a major host for our facilities.
That's right.
I hope they can find someone.
Yeah, so we'll be helping kind of spread the word.
Yeah.
Slot is open.
So I think, unless there are other questions or observations about the organizational meeting, we're ready to move on. That, again, well, I think you probably said it, we actually have 2 meetings
Yes,
in June.
correct. So the first meeting will be the organizational meeting, where we'll do all the elections, and then immediately following will be the regular business meeting for June. And it's on the same day, so the org meeting will start at 6, and then however long it takes, and then we'll start the business meeting immediately following.
Very good. I think then we're ready to move on to item number 8, which is an executive session for the purpose of discussing real estate transactions. If we could read a motion into the record.
Sure, and our Becky Johnston, our data and policy analyst, is running this meeting. We don't have anyone from the public, so she can move CCTV into a waiting room and we won't all have to leave.
Okay.
So I'll read the motion and then no one will have to leave that's online. Motion that the Board of Commissioners of the Chittenden Solid Waste District go into executive session to discuss real estate negotiations where premature general public knowledge would clearly place the district, its member municipalities, and other public bodies or persons involved at a substantial disadvantage, and to permit authorized staff and other invited interested parties to be present for this session.
So move, South Burlington.
Seconded, Essex.
Thank you. It's been moved and seconded that we enter into executive session for the purpose of discussing real estate transactions. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed, say nay. Any abstentions? We will now enter into executive session. The motion then would be to authorize the executive director to put the property owned by Chittenden Solid Waste District on Flynn Avenue in Burlington, to put that property on the market.
But amend that to specify when the
Recording in
Got it. So,
progress.
authorizing the executive director to put 195 Flynn Avenue property in Burlington on the market.
So moved, Essex.
Second, South Burlington.
Thank you. It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion on the motion? All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, say nay. Abstentions? Motion carries, and
Thank you.
we'll hopefully find a buyer for that piece of property. Next item on the agenda is other business. Henry had mentioned that he had a couple of items, but I'm not sure that he is with us at the meeting.
we'll try to catch him
Tom.
in the next meeting.
Yeah, Tom?
I have a couple of brief comments. To support my independent water research lab, I work part-time as a security guard. I was at the Essex Fairgrounds last night, and I want to give a shout out to the CSWD Waste Warriors, who were very much in evidence last night at the what's the thing?
Vampires meeting.
Vampire Weekend concert.
Weekend.
And they seem very enthusiastic about their
Yes.
work. Number two, I received the appeal for scraps mailer, and I think the graphics are really eye-catching.
Thank you.
And
Thank
the
you, Tom, for mentioning both. I will pass along the kudos to our Waste Warriors. They are a great group, and also to Kat and Gabby, who work with them directly. And yes, so Paul did bring in the postcard that went out this week for food scraps, and again, we are making our push to our community to just think about the food scraps and the different options that they have to keep them out of the landfill. And that picture tells the tale of just how much we can do.
Okay, we have 1 minute until our scheduled, well, no, that was the other business was to begin at 7:45. We're ahead of schedule. If that concludes everything, I think we'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved, Essex.
Second, South Burlington.
It's been moved and seconded that we adjourn. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? No abstentions. We're now adjourned.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you
everyone.
all.
Thanks, everyone.